New Mexico. This is Democracy Now!
Mushroom clouds snake skyward, hurling the atom's deadly radiation high into the heavens.
In this special broadcast from just outside Los Alamos National Laboratory, we look at the radioactive legacy of New Mexico. The atomic bombs used in World War II were designed and developed here. New Mexico still plays a key role in maintaining the nation's massive nuclear arsenal.
Is revitalizing its nuclear weapons production base. And again, the laboratories, mark my words, and as the Republicans already wrote, they're calling for or attempting to demand a, quote, modern warhead that means new designs.
We will speak with Jay Coughlin of Nuclear Watch New Mexico and Los Alamos whistleblower Jack Montano. We'll also look at the devastating impact uranium mining has had on native lands with Leona Morgan of Eastern Navajo Diné against uranium mining. Then Michael Reynolds on how he's creating radically sustainable living options through a process called Earthshift biotecture.
If all of the soldiers in all of the armies in all of the world were to put down their weapons and pick up tools and start making sustainable housing for all the people in the world, life would just begin on this planet.
All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're on the road in Los Alamos, New Mexico, part of our 100-city tour. The U.S. military has deployed a secret task force to Jordan to help respond to the ongoing violence in Syria. The New York Times reports a contingent of more than 150 planners and other specialists is tasked with helping Jordanian forces handle incoming Syrian refugees, prepare for Syria's potential loss of control over its chemical weapons, and respond should the turmoil in Syria spread more widely throughout the Middle East. The mission also reportedly has discussed contingency plans to insulate Jordan from the conflict, with talk of a U.S.-backed buffer zone along the Syria-Jordan border. The U.S. military presence in Jordan comes just as the Jordanian monarchy is facing its largest protests since the start of the Arab Spring. On Friday, thousands of Jordanians marched in the capital Amman demanding economic opportunities and democratic reforms. Turkey forced a Syrian passenger plane to land Wednesday and then confiscated its cargo as tensions between the two countries continue to rise. The plane was traveling from Moscow to the Syrian city of Damascus, and there were unconfirmed reports military supplies, including weapons parts, were found on board. Turkey's backed rebels opposed to the regime of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and has been at odds with its neighbor since Syrian shelling killed 5 Turkish civilians last week. Turkey's fired artillery across the border and threatened to respond with more attacks if Syrian fire continues. Democratic-Republican lawmakers clashed Wednesday at a House hearing into the security failures before the killings of 4 Americans at the U.S. consulate in Libya last month. Republicans have accused the Obama administration of failing to adequately protect the consulate, while Democrats have accused Republicans of cutting funding that would have paid for the absent security they now decry. On Wednesday, the State Department acknowledged rejecting appeals for more security at U.S. sites in Libya in the months before the deadly attack. A former U.S. official in Libya, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Wood, said U.S. security operations in Libya had been weak.
The security in Benghazi was a struggle and remained a struggle throughout my time there. The situation remained uncertain, and reports from some Libyans indicated it was getting worse. Diplomatic security remained weak. In April, there was only 1 U.S. diplomatic security agent stationed there. The RSO struggled to obtain additional personnel, but was never able to attain the numbers he felt comfortable with.
Mitt Romney has agreed to stop publicly discussing a former Navy SEAL killed in the attack on the U.S. consulate in Libya following complaints from the victim's mother. Glenn Doherty was one of 4 Americans killed in the attack in Benghazi 1 month ago today. In his campaign stump speech, Romney has repeatedly recounted his story of meeting Doherty at a function several years ago.
I just learned a few days ago that he was one of the 2 former Navy SEALs killed in Benghazi. And it broke my heart. He was a guy who had lived in my home state of Massachusetts. We shared some passions for the kinds of things he was interested in.
Mitt Romney has invoked the killings in Libya to criticize President Obama's foreign policy. In response to Romney's speech, Doherty's mother, Barbara Doherty, said, quote, "I don't trust Romney. He shouldn't make my son's death part of his political agenda. It's wrong to use these brave young men who wanted freedom for all to degrade Obama." A friend of Doherty's, Elf Ellefson, has also criticized Romney's speech, saying Romney had forgotten meeting Doherty several times at the event and that Doherty had found him to be insincere and stale.
Actually approached him using this private gathering as basically a political venture to further his image. And Glenn just believed it to be very insincere and stale.
The Supreme Court has heard arguments in a case challenging affirmative action in college admissions. A white student who says she was rejected from the University of Texas because of her ethnicity brought the case, alleging she's the victim of discrimination. The challenge threatens an earlier decision that allowed public colleges and universities to consider race in order to improve diversity. The 2003 Grutter versus Bollinger ruling banned the use of point systems, but allowed for less direct methods of affirmative action. Justice Elena Kagan has recused herself from the case, leaving it in the hands of the remaining 8 justices. A ruling is expected next year. In Yemen, the Yemeni head of security at the U.S. Embassy in Sana'a has been assassinated. Qassem Akiani was killed by an unknown assailant earlier today on his way to work. Rallies and vigils have been held across Pakistan in support of a 14-year-old activist for girls' education who was left seriously wounded in a targeted shooting. Malala Yousafzai was on her way home from school in an area of northwest Pakistan when militants stopped the vehicle she was traveling in. One man reportedly asked for Malala by name and then shot her in the head and neck. The Pakistani Taliban has since claimed responsibility for the attack, saying it targeted her speaking out against them, as well as against, quote, Islam and Sharia. Malala has been celebrated worldwide for opposing the Taliban's efforts to stop girls from attending school. On Wednesday, hundreds of people gathered in several Pakistani cities to condemn the attack.
There's nothing more cowardly than for grown men to be attacking a small little girl of 14 years old. I condemn it in the strongest possible terms, and I think there can be nothing more cowardly than this.
Malala Yousafzai is said to be in stable condition after undergoing surgery to remove a bullet from her skull. The Pakistani government has offered a bounty of over $100,000 for the capture of those who shot her. In Russia, a court has freed one of 3 jailed members of the punk protest group Pussy Riot, but upheld prison sentences for the other 2. In a case that's drawn international attention, the women were found guilty of hooliganism motivated by religious hatred after performing a punk prayer inside a cathedral, exhorting the Virgin Mary to get rid of Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Yekaterina Samutsevich was released on Wednesday after her lawyers argued she played less of a role in the protest because she was ejected from the cathedral before she could remove her guitar from its case. At a court hearing, Samutsevich apologized to church members offended by the action, saying the intended target had been Putin and Russian elites.
Dear believers, we did not want to insult you. We never had such intentions. We went to the cathedral to voice our protest, our desperate protest against the merging of the religious elites and the political elites of our country.
The two other Pussy Riot members who remain behind bars will be jailed for another 2 years. A federal appeals court has reinstated a Montana law limiting donations to political campaigns. The law was among several that had been struck down in Montana in decisions citing the Supreme Court's landmark Citizens United ruling that allowed unlimited corporate spending on elections. But this week, the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals reversed an earlier challenge, saying the judge who struck it down needs to provide his full reasoning for allowing unlimited money in political campaigns. And today marks 10 years since the Senate voted to authorize the use of military force against Iraq, paving the way for the U.S. invasion that would come less than 6 months later. Among those to vote in favor were future Democratic presidential candidates John Kerry, Hillary Clinton, John Edwards, and Joe Biden, who squares off against another lawmaker who also voted for war, Congressmember Paul Ryan, in today's vice presidential debate. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. We're in our 100-city tour here in Los Alamos, New Mexico. Yes,